women's football is commercially viable.
Yeah.
Women's football talks to a new audience. Women's football has the power to change culture.
Yeah.
And it's such a powerful tool to speak to the next generation.
Welcome to The Summit. This is FOUDYS Adventures podcast where we interview amazing people from all over the UK about their personal and their work journeys. We're here today with Helen, who is the founder of FOUDYS. It's quite a mouthful to say together. What an honour to have you here. Thank you so much for coming to see us at FOUDYS Adventures, and what a journey you've had to date. So just for full clarity, we're an investor in FOUDYS, super supportive of you and your team and what you're trying to achieve. Helen, why don't you tell us about FOUDYS, when you started it, why you started it, and where you are today and your journey?
Yeah, it's been a relatively short journey by all stretches. So I'm a big women's football fan. I'm a big football fan, primarily, from Newcastle. And growing up, my only real experience of football was men's football. I actually didn't really know that women played football, to be honest. I thought I was maybe a little bit alone in that. I'd go to all the camps and stuff where the boys were, and there'd be me and maybe a couple of other girls, probably all England internationals now, the only one that didn't make it. But in my day, it was very much a men's sport, a male-dominated sport. And then growing up, what I started to see was little trinkets of the women's game sort of creeping into my life, and I was starting to see it more on TV. And I think in 2015, the BBC aired the World Cup for the first time, and it was in Canada, so it was in the middle of the night, and I remember becoming obsessed. Like, I was like late for work and stuff because I was watching the Women's World Cup at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I started to follow it really closely. I went out to the Netherlands in 2017 to watch it. And then in 2019, as a shirt collector, I was buzzing at the announcement that the international women's teams would have their own bespoke football kit. So they have their own kit designed for them. And it felt so special to me because as a marketeer, as someone that worked in marketing, I was like, this is the best brand awareness tool. If I see someone walking down the street in an Australia jersey, I don't know if they're supporting the men or the women, whereas now it's going to be so clear that they're supporting the men or the women. And so I was so excited to start seeing that drip feed into my life, to be walking down the high street and see someone in a Lioness's shirt. And that's not what happened. I was walking around in 2019 at the Women's World Cup in France, and people wearing the men's shirts. And I was thinking, you've made the effort to fly out to France, spent the money that I've spent to be here, which was a lot of money, and you're wearing men's football shirts. So talking to fans, it was essentially came down to accessibility, that they wanted those products. They were beautiful, bespoke products built by the big brands, but they couldn't get hold of them. They didn't know where they were. And if they were on the websites, they were hidden away behind photos of Arsenal men's team or Ronaldo or whatever. And so at the time, I sort of planted that seed in the back of my mind. There should be a platform where fans can go of the women's game and they can get those products. Little did I know it would end with me sitting in here having a chat with you. At the time, it was just a thought in my mind. And then that thing happened called COVID, and the pandemic was a real moment of reassessment for me as a person. I was in a really good job, working in marketing. I was helping businesses to grow, to exit. I was kind of getting a real eye into what it was to be a business owner, working directly with business owners and supporting them. And I was like, I think I could do this. I think I have that entrepreneurial spirit as a person to do something like this. And it was when that kind of seed of that memory came back to me, and I was thinking again about my passion, about my love for the women's game, about my want to grow the women's game and my obsession almost around doing that. And that's when I launched FOUDYS. At the time, I was a bit naive, and I named it after a woman called Julie Foudy, who is a talisman of change back in the 90s. A US women's national team player. And it was a bit naive because I could have had a lawsuit pending. But now, flash forwards, 2 and a bit years, Julie Foudy is an ambassador of the company.
Wow.
We've grown to being a team of, I can't remember what it is now, 6 of us, 7 of us. And of course, investment from FOUDYS Adventures, who have been the most incredible partner in this process. And that's how I would describe FOUDYS Adventures, because they have supported, they've not inhibited, or they've not caused barriers or hurdles. It's just been a support of the work that we're doing, but with giving that expert advice and having people on the ground that I can call and chat to and bounce off and help to sort of grow this business to what it is today.
Amazing. Well, very nice words. Thank you, and fearless. But what an amazing journey. So when did you actually start FOUDYS then? When was that?
It was December 2020. I remember the 13th of December. And the reason was, what a weird time to launch an e-commerce platform in the middle of the Christmas rush. I'd actually been fighting to get WSL lettering, WSL being the Women's Super League, the lettering that goes on the back of the shirts, for maybe 8 to 9 months.
Wow.
And I had really toiled over it. I'd been going back to the FA on numerous occasions and trying to find out where I could source this lettering. At the time, only Arsenal offered that. None of the retailers did. None of the football clubs did. So only Arsenal were offering the bespoke women's lettering. And I was thinking, you can't walk around town in a Viv Miedemar jersey with Premier League lions on the sleeve. It makes no sense. So I was like, let me sell this, let me do this. And I wasn't really getting any response because it was just little old me in my bedroom. So I got the deal on the 12th of December. And overnight, I remember just sitting in my bedroom, laptop on my knees, and I was just building a website. I never done anything like that before in my life. It was rubbish. It didn't look great. And I was just adding, products, Arsenal, Manchester United, Manchester City. At the time, I had no deals with any of the brands like Nike. I was literally buying an Arsenal shirt off the shelf in Sports Direct, and then I was printing the lettering on the back and posting it out. And my whole plan was prove the viability, because everywhere I was being told that women's football wasn't commercially viable, but I was going out and sitting in the stands and all I was seeing was people wanting those products. So I was like, there's no data to back this up because no one else is trying this. So I got the rights on the 12th of December 2020 and I launched on the 13th of December 2020.
Wow, okay. Overnight then?
Overnight. And it was at the time, obviously pre-pandemic, I was doing it basically as a sideline thing. It was the pandemic of this sort of sideline bedroom project that made me go, this is the real deal. This is something that I really want to dive into and really go for it.
And what was the turning point? You say people were skeptical on the commercial viability of this. At what point did you have to stop chasing others to get access versus them coming to you?
That's still a problem. Well, we're 2 and a bit years in. I think that I don't really know when the change came for me in terms of, I guess, my credibility. But there certainly has been a change for me. It's so difficult because as a woman, I find it really difficult to talk about myself in a really positive way or to big myself up. It's something that is a real challenge for me even now. But there was a definite turning point in the last 6 to 8 months. There was, I think, catalysts of change where I really don't know how or why, but I got a call from the National Lottery and they put my face on the steps of Wembley as a portrait, which for me was obviously incredibly shocking. But what came from that was people reaching out to me. I remember Adidas sending me some boots in the post just to say well done. And me being like, whoa, I get free stuff now. What's this about? So I think that that's still a process in terms of people seeing my credibility, but I see that as my biggest hurdle as a business, because although I'm not competing with any other retailers, all the other retailers in the sports world have been around for decades. They've been in existence, they're household names. So when I come along, people go, is this legitimate? And when you're spending 130 quid on a bespoke football shirt with all of the trimmings, you need to know it's legitimate. So in the first few months or years of growing the business, it was like, I promise you I'm real. I promise it's real. I tried to use myself as putting myself at the front of it and saying I'm here and I'm the one printing the shirts. And I hope that I hold some credibility in this industry as somebody that is so passionate about the women's game. Now I feel like kind of turning a corner a little bit where brands kind of come to me and people come to me and people want to work with FOUDYS.
Well, I think from a lot of big brands' perspective, because they've paid no attention to the women's game, right? They're actually, they don't actually even understand how to participate in it. So having someone like you that can actually say, well, this is what you need to do, these are what you need to think about, these are the specific issues, I think is fantastic that you have that dialogue. Amazing.
It's been incredible because the openness, especially in the last few months, for brands and clubs to be listening and opening themselves up to change is huge. You've got to remember, we talked to a very famous Premier League club today that also has a WSL club, and essentially you're dealing with a 125-year-old institution that has built their rhetoric around a working class, male, dominant demographic. And I put a tweet out yesterday because it was the only way I could capture the data. I was like, hey, women's football fans, how many of you also follow the men's game? And then I think the 3 answers or 3 options were, I equally follow women's and men's, I only follow women's, or I follow a little bit of men's. And 51% of 500 people that answered in the last 24 hours said to me, I only follow the women's or I follow a little bit of men's combined. So like basically over half the audience haven't really got interest in this part of the product that you're offering. And yet all of your rhetoric is mirroring what you've done for 125 years.
Yeah.
You've grown this brand, which is evolved over a specific demographic. Yeah. And now you're speaking to an entirely new customer base, i.e. women, i.e. the LGBTQ plus community, ABC1, social groupings, like a totally different group of people are interested in the women's game that weren't before. And we have the opportunity to really authentically speak to them. And now clubs are really recognizing that. So it's little things like the club in question, we're talking about the fashion surrounding women's football that we don't really have in the men's game. The women's players and what they wear is so important to fans. Like we're starting to add it to our website and what we offer. If Lucy Bronze wears a certain pair of Nike Dunks, they will sell out those Nike Dunks because Lucy Bronze wore them and she's wicked. So it's kind of leading the way that fans are interacting with the clubs by them sort of adapting their style, and they're starting to recognise that, which is super exciting.
That's really, really good. So obviously you started in the UK. Talk to me about kind of your international ambitions, the US.
Yeah, I think we're just really skimming the surface at the moment, simply because we've launched in Manchester. And it's so easy to speak to a UK market when you exist in that sphere. Going over to the NWSL, I've been a fan for a long time. I support Portland Thorns. I'm repping them today.
There you go.
And I've always loved Portland Thorns because of their community, because of the way that they kind of present their brand. So I can be sitting in Manchester and really feel connected to a club on the other side of the world. But we really are just talking to European fans right now. And the biggest part of the market sits over the pond in Canada and America. Soccer is a women's sport in America. I think if you asked any fan on the street to name a soccer player, they'd probably say Rapinoe or Alex Morgan before they'd say Pulisic. So I feel like the connection to the US market is crucial. And I think that we are going to have to adapt our style to make that work. And that was so paramount when we were there a few weeks ago. We went to watch San Diego and Angel City, and I met up with Julie Foudy, who's the ambassador of FOUDYS. And when we were there, it was like a totally different energy, different vibe. Like the culture, the food, the community, the connection to the LGBTQ plus community, which was so prominent. And all of those things just meant I came away going, we've got work to do. Like our style, the way we talk to people is just going to have to completely change in order to make this work. It's almost like, I wonder whether we need feet on the ground. I wonder whether that's our next big step as a company to really infiltrate that market. But then I also think having Julie Foudy at the helm is huge for us. She's the owner of Angel City, which is the biggest club in American women's soccer. She co-owns it with Natalie Portman and Serena Williams. It's like the celeb crew.
That's cool.
And their connection to their community is huge. So using her as a knowledge bank and getting support from her to reach that market, I think will be huge for us. And then just listening and communicating with the fans and just really taking it in, because I'm going to have to learn a lot.
And do you think there's something we can bring back from the US and bring back to the UK in terms of the way women's football's thought about over there? Can we take lessons from them?
Hell yeah.
And how do you do that?
By having the conversations like I had today with that famous British football club. I think they're open to it. So we're seeing a bit of since the win in 2022, I'm sure you know which win I'm referencing, the Lionesses lifting the trophy obviously changed the game really, because what it did is it cemented what I already knew. I wouldn't have launched a business if I didn't know it, which is women's football is commercially viable. Women's football talks to a new audience. Women's football has the power to change culture, and it's such a powerful tool to speak to the next generation. And I think by the clubs opening their doors and being open to that change, which I'm now seeing, especially over the last few months, going into the new season, I think by them doing that, they're listening a lot more. And the club today were like, I think we should fly over to the West Coast of America and go to a game. The fact is, they're obviously it's pounds and pence, isn't it? And San Diego Wave are a team that were formed a year ago and got 31,000 for an average game. They'll get 30,000 people going to the stadium. By any stretch, that's a decent turnout.
Yeah.
And the ticket prices are $25, $30, $40.
Yeah.
So we're not talking freebies being given away. People genuinely want to go, and we want to know why. They want to know why.
Yeah.
And similarly, that's reflected across the NWSL, other clubs, 25, 30,000 people. This is an incredibly popular sport.
Yeah.
Why? So the clubs in the UK being open to that, I think will hopefully like shift and change the narrative on how they sell to a women's football audience versus the day before maybe or the day after where they're talking to a men's football audience. They're different groups, people.
Yeah.
And I think they're recognising that for sure.
Sounds like an incredible journey to date. Come on, it mustn't have been that easy. What were the real, oh my God, is this actually going to work moments?
You know what? I think no one really ever asked me that question, because I think when you're an entrepreneur, when you're building a business, I think people are so afraid to not, they want to talk about the glass ceiling as if it's achievable for everyone.
Yeah.
And this isn't me trying to crush people's dreams. They're going to be like, you won't be able to do it, you're going to fail. I genuinely believe it's a certain type of person and a certain type of mentality that gets any business person to a point of turning that corner to, you know, and I hate the word success, because what is that? It's such a blanket word and it doesn't really mean anything, because success can be different for everybody. But I think being an entrepreneur and building a business, there've been more lows than highs. Like I'll take probably the biggest achievement the company has got, which is signing a Nike contract and having a partnership with Nike and an incredible relationship with Nike. I think other people will be like, oh, well done, mate. That must have been loads of work. They don't really want to know how hard it was. Yeah. So before launching my business, December 2020, I made a 6-minute video, which I found like a month ago. We were laughing our heads off looking at it in the office. It's so embarrassing. So I made a 6-minute video about the journey of the women's game, how it was banned for 50 years. We weren't actually allowed to play it. It was outlawed in the UK. And how we've built from 1970 to this point through essentially like a movement, through really brave women stepping up and trying to be counted. And I made this video. I think I ended with, and I thought no one else is doing it, so I'll just do it. Boom. That's obviously the time. Like,
Suave.
So we were all in the office like, oh Helen, why?
What was that?
Yeah, so I made this video and I sent it to info@nike.com, info@nike.co.uk, hello@nike.com. It's like trying all of these email addresses, and obviously never got a response. I found a couple of LinkedIn contacts. I'm desperately trying to sort of reach into Nike from my bedroom, and naturally it didn't happen. And that process is like a level of resilience that is unmatched, I think, in any other part of my life, because I remember first getting on a call with the incredible Liz Beerhoff, who works heavily within Nike in the women's game. And we were approaching the Euros. And so I'd been a year and a bit into the journey. I was talking with Fearless at the time. And it was like hammering at a door, almost embarrassing, like that like trying to get on a date with somebody that just didn't want to date you. And just being told, we love what you're doing. Keep going. You know, you're doing great stuff. And at the time, remember, I was buying a shirt from the shelf for 70 quid and selling it for 70 quid. Yeah. So I was making £0, 0 pence. Yeah. And I was working in a pub. Yeah. And I was like trying to present on the surface this person that was like turning over millions and like living this high life, because I wanted to present to the brands like, this is comfortably the best thing you will ever do. And I remember 8, 9, 10 conversations into Nike. I remember Liz a lot at the end of a conversation just going, I'm going to message this guy called Fabian. He's the head of partnerships for Europe. He'll say no, because Nike have shut down the partnership system 5 years ago. They won't reopen it, and he'll say no, but I'm going to ask the question. And then I pressed her the week later. I remember approaching the start of the Euros. I pressed her the week after. And then I remember Fabian agreeing to a call with me, and then me creating an entirely new pitch deck to present to him and saying, can I come to Amsterdam to meet you? I don't know how I'm going to pay for that, but I'll pay for it. And then Fabian be like, it's going to be a no, but I'll ask the question for you. Yeah. And it was constantly, it's going to be a no. And it was constantly like, if it's a no, the entire business model that I've built crumbles. Yeah. And then Fabian come back to me and being like, it might be a yes. And we've been like, that means it's a yes.
Yeah.
Like, that was all I had to kind of, that was all I had to cling on to.
Yeah.
And so Nike rebuilt their partnership system internally so they could add us to the system.
Wow.
And then reclose the partnership system down again. Right. So we became the 24th partner of Nike in Europe.
Yeah.
Of which the 23 others are household names, the biggest sports brands in the world. And it was because I so heavily lent into our USP. I was like, is anyone else doing this? I was like, go on the Sports Direct website right now. What do you see? The faces of men. Like wake up. And I think it was my persistence, my resilience, and I wasn't willing for them to say no. That they were like, fine, we'll rebuild the internal systems, just go away. And now it just feels like a distant memory. And I think my sister said to me yesterday, you need to vlog or create a video diary because you will forget this part of your journey. Like now with a team of people around me, including the Fearless team, it's hard to remember being alone in the office at like 9 p.m, creating another pitch deck for Nike and just thinking this is going to crumble. I know this is probably not going to work, but I was really, and I was telling everyone on the outside as well, like, oh, I'm so close to signing Nike. Like, it's coming. My mum and dad were like, really? But I just had to be resilient to it, and remembering that is crucial because remembering those moments really sort of paved the way for the resilience you need now. Every day you've got hurdles and things that you're going to face as a business owner that almost see you at the brink, those constant battles that I need to remember and need to focus on to help me to lift me forwards.
Yeah, as you said, as entrepreneurs, you kind of always focus on the highs and you try and forget the lows, right? Because actually it's all about stepping ahead and moving forward. And, as you said, resilience is like such an important underestimated skill, I think, as an entrepreneur. Like, it's huge.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you're spot on. I think you're one of the first people that I've spoken to about the lows because people are like, and then you got Nike, and then you got Adidas, as if it's like,
it's easy.
I just smashed through those.
Gave him a call.
It was like, oh, my pal Dave, who works in, I knew no one. I've not come from anyone in the football world, none of my family, none of my friends, I had no connections. It was about, on those days where I didn't want to be at that game because I was really tired, I knew that potentially at that game I would meet somebody that would help me to create that connection, that would help me to get that contract that was crucial to my survival. And it sounds dramatic, but I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the resilience of like, it'll happen for me, it's going to happen for me. And that's still happening right now. I'm not sitting here on a yacht or anything.
Working hard. So now obviously a lot of brands really want to get involved in women's football. Is there a risk that some of them are just using you a little bit because they haven't figured it out themselves or don't want to figure it out but want to be part of it?
I think authenticity is really key, and I don't think we necessarily see that from all the brands, but I also think the consumer isn't blind to that. So I don't think the consumer sits there and goes, oh, amazing, this company is like, I'm going to go start buying their brand, or I'm going to start using their service because they back women's football. I think the fans are really aware of where we were and where we are and the journey that it's taken. And anybody really that's invested in the women's game, there is a real clear authenticity. You can see that it's more than that. I think a prime example would be the football club that I launched. The brand that have invested in the football club chose not to put their name on the front. They donated the sponsorship to a women's and men's football podcast called Stadio, which is epic. It's the reason they did it is two reasons. Like, they're really cool. So they were like, this is going to be really cool for your football club to have this brand on the front. And number two, because it's authentic. And anybody that wants to know about the sort of deep roots of the shirt and where it's come from, know about the connection to Avery Dennison. And those authentic ties mean so much more than slapping Leah Williamson on a billboard alongside your packet of crisps or whatever it is. And I think the fans see through it. So it frustrates me because I've been knocking at doors since 2019, and I did a women's football podcast back in 2019 for the Women's World Cup that was just in like a fun project. We called it tongue in cheek. It was called Two Girls World Cup. Anyway, so we had this podcast, and it was a real fun sort of look at the World Cup. And we went to all the brands to try and get support so we could do studio stuff. And it was just a no, really. It was just like, why would we want to invest in that? And I was in France in packed out stadiums at the World Cup going, people aren't seeing this. But I think that so much of the negative impact of women's football has come from people seeing the very small minority of people that says no one cares. So there's still this thing of like, no one cares. And there was a 50,000 waiting list for Wembley final. Wow. No one cares, but there's 140,000 people that wanted to access that stadium on the European final day, similarly World Cup final. Yeah. And this has been what I've experienced so much over the years. Yeah. It's been the main reason behind people not accessing women's football is accessibility routes, not knowing that it's there, not knowing that it's happening. Yeah. I was at a semi-final for Manchester United women, and all the rhetoric around the stadium was about rugby. All the signage on the way in was about the local rugby team. It's like, we're at a semi-final of the FA Cup. Accessibility is the primary issue. It's not the brand. Yeah. On the pitch was Ella Toone, who chipped the goalkeeper in the European final. I mean, like, she's a celebrity. It was that people don't know it's happening. Yeah. So now brands are recognizing that pummeling money into it isn't going to be the answer. Authenticity and really understanding the game and the fans that want to support the game is crucial.
I think maybe one of your summits may have been listing on the BBC Women's Power List, right? Number 6, is it? In the UK? I mean, oh my God, what happened? What when you found that out, how did you feel?
It was 3 o'clock in the morning, I was in Portland. And I was like, my mum rang me and she was just screaming. My mum she listens to Women's Hour.
Right, okay.
And like, I forget, sometimes I don't know that stuff's a really big deal because of the pace at which everything's happening. Yeah. And so it's like my family being like, no, this is a really big deal. Yeah. But I honestly think someone must have paid them off because I'm sitting a place above Lotte Wubben-Moy, who is centre back for England. But Lotte Wubben-Moy changed government legislation to get every young girl in schools playing football. Yeah. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I think accolades are a funny old thing because they don't really do anything to show the journey. Yeah. They're a thing that either exists in a sphere or they're a bit of glass or metal that you can take home with you. Accolades feel really good in the moment, but they don't really define me or my journey. Yeah. But we spoke a bit before about credibility, and like that's why I lean into it, because I think that for me, my primary objective is building credibility because I know I'm credible, but building that credibility so that I can grow my brand and continue to create jobs in women's football and continue to do what I want to do. Yeah. So it feels nice, and it was like it was really shocking, and I genuinely was like, no way. And also for Leah Williamson to finish top was incredible because it was obviously covering all sport, and for me, she's obviously someone I look up to. She's the England captain. She's an inspiration to so many people. So to finish on a list, even in the same sentence as Leah Williamson, is like unbelievable. And I've been invited on to Women's Hour to talk, which my mum's like, you wouldn't have had to tell me because I just tune in. She's just so buzzing. So like knowing your family like are so excited for you, it feels really good.
Yeah. And do you know where your summit is yet? Do you know what your personal summit looks like and where you are on that journey?
So hard, because the reason I started this was twofold. Like, my objective was to grow the women's game. Yeah. And I think people can say that's a cliche or they cannot believe me. I really don't care if people believe me or not. But genuinely, I thought this would be a bedroom business that maybe like one day I'd have a little shop or something like that. Yeah. And I'd play my part in the growth of the women's game. It's a lot bigger than that now. But still my focus is the growth of the women's game, and it's exciting that it's bigger. But my other objective when I was in a full-time job, where I was very happy, by the way, and I say happy, I think I really want to hammer, I was happy. Like, happy is such a net word. I think my goal is to remain fulfilled. Yeah. If I could have a summit, it would be just checking back constantly on whether I'm feeling fulfilled and whether I feel like the work that I'm doing is causing me fulfillment and also reaching my objective, which is to continue the growth of the women's game. There probably isn't a summit. And anecdotally, Ollie, who works at Fearless, we were in Amsterdam and I presented to the Nike board, and I, not because of the summit or not because of the Fearless Adventures or the way that the investment firm is logoed with all of the mountains. I came out of the meeting and I was like, I felt really warm. And we came out of the room and I said to Ollie, oh my God, I feel like I've climbed Mount Everest. And he went, oh, Helen, you're only at base camp. I was like,
thanks, Holly.
and I didn't know whether to feel really deflated or whether to go, right, let's go. But I guess that really kind of covers it.
Yeah.
That like, it feels monumental to be where I am now. So anywhere I go from here
It's all good.
will be a huge achievement.
Exactly. Fantastic. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Helen.
Thanks for having me.
And I hope everyone enjoyed watching this. I mean, you know, I think we can all take inspiration from Helen's ability to balance, you know, her social impact ambition of raising awareness of women's football and delivering what is an amazing business at the same time. If you enjoyed it, please leave a review, rate us, and let us know if there's any particular guests you'd like to see in the future. Thank you.